I want to talk about hormones. And what's that about? You know, we're used to thinking about food might cause weight gain, or food might cause a high cholesterol, or foods can lead to diabetes, or something like that. But my message now is that there are far more conditions than that are related to what we eat. And if foods change estrogen in a woman's body, or testosterone in a man's body, or thyroid hormone, or insulin, or any of these myriad hormones that we can barely pronounce, let alone understand how they work. But if foods control our hormones, we gain new power over a vast array of health issues. I was sitting at my desk, and a young woman, there she is, her name is Robin, she called me up. She said, "Dr. Barnard, I can't get out of bed." I said, "What's the problem?" She had menstrual pain, and a lot of women have some cramps, but for maybe 1 in 10, they are so bad, about 1 day a month, that you can't go to work. She had a business trip the next day. She said, "I can't get on a plane, I can't even move." And so I said, "Okay, what's going on here? I can give you some painkillers for a couple of days. But how are we going to stop this from happening again next month and the month after that?" And I gave her a prescription that I don't think anybody had ever given to a menstrual pain patient before, but here's why. She was describing her suffering. There she is. It's terrible. I said, "Look, let's make a diet change. Do you want to try an experiment with me?" She said, "I'll try anything." I said, "Okay, here's the experiment. No animal products for the next month. And keep oils to a bare minimum." A little bit later, I'm going to tell you why I suggested these things. But there's plenty of healthy things left to eat. And she said, "I'll try it." She called me up 4 weeks later and said, "This is amazing. My period arrived 0 pain, no symptoms at all." And the same was true the next month, and the next month, and the next month. Unless she would change her diet, bring in greasy stuff, then she would pay for it at the end of that month. And so I thought, okay, that's great, but we need to study this more and see if this really would work for a larger group of people. So, along with the Georgetown University Department of OBGYN, I did a randomized trial where we brought in a large group of women. They all had moderate to severe pain, and half of them went on a low-fat, completely vegan diet. Now, a vegan diet, for anybody who is new, a vegan diet does not mean that you're from the planet Vegas. It just means you're not eating animal products at all. And so the other group got a supplement that was actually a placebo, just a dummy pill for comparison. And then after 2 months, 2 cycles, the diet group started taking the supplement, and the supplement group started the diet. So we were crossing them over. And it worked. We published our results in the Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology, and what we found was that it reduces pain, it reduced PMS symptoms, bloating, mood changes, lots of things were affected by this rather simple diet change. Wild. Well, in the course of the study, we asked all of the participants not to use any kind of hormonal medications. So if a woman was, say, taking birth control pills, that's a hormone, and since our study is looking at hormone effects, that would goof up what we're doing. So we said, if you're sexually active, please use some other kind of contraception, not the pill. One of the women in the study said, "Dr. Barnard, don't worry about me. I don't use any contraception at all. My husband and I gave up the idea of having a baby 5 years ago. And we were both evaluated. Why couldn't we get pregnant? It's not him. It's me. I don't ovulate. So we haven't used any kind of contraception." The second month that she was on the low-fat, healthy, plant-based diet, she came into our research center, and she said, "Dr. Barnard, I've got some bad news and I've got some good news." I said, "What is it?" "The bad news is I'm leaving your study. And the good news is I am pregnant." And she gave birth to a healthy baby, and another one, and a third baby. And so here's the point. Robin, the young woman who called me up with menstrual pain, did not have a disease. She was out of balance. And this woman, her name is Ella, she was not infertile. She was out of balance. And yet, what doctor is going to explain to you, here's how your hormones work, and here's how a diet change could affect them? They're not going to explain that because the science is still murky in many ways, and we're not taught these things in medical school anyway, and we're frankly much more comfortable saying, you're infertile. Or here are medications, or you can do various expensive treatments or something like that. But in some cases, the answers are simpler and are right in front of us. So, what are hormones? Hormones are basically messages. It's like a letter that goes from one part of the body to another. So, the thyroid at the base of your neck makes thyroid hormone that goes out to the cells of the body to give them energy. Or your pancreas makes insulin that goes to the cells of the body to allow sugar to come inside. Or a woman's ovaries make estrogens that go to her reproductive organs and get her ready for pregnancy. Or in a man's body, his testes make testosterone that make him want to run for president. So our hormones affect many aspects of our lives. But you can have too little in the way of hormones, so you're not getting enough letters in the mail. Or you can get too much hormones, so you're getting too many messages that are causing what I'm going to call hormone haywire. So, how can foods actually get our hormones back into balance? Well, thing one, let me illustrate this with a young woman. This is Catherine. Catherine was from Louisiana, and she was an Air Force aerospace engineer and one of the first people to go into Iraq in 2003 because she got the military bases ready. And when you're in a war zone and you're working really hard and you're eating what the government provides, you do not gain a lot of weight. But as her tour of duty came to an end, she got shipped back to the US, and her friend said, what foods did you really miss the most when you were over there in Iraq? And what she missed was mac and cheese, cheese this, cheese that, cheese all kinds of things. And she ate a lot of this stuff upon her return. And in fact, a friend of hers gave her an entire case of macaroni and cheese dinners. There's 48 of them in a case. And she, for 48 days straight, she actually ate macaroni and cheese. I'm not making this up. She actually did this. She gained weight. But she also noticed something else. She started to develop pain in her abdomen. And as the months went by, her pain was getting worse and worse and worse. It was especially bad with her cycle, but it was never really gone. And after a lot of evaluations, her doctor did a laparoscopy. It's where you put a little incision below the belly button and you put in a scope and you look around. The doctor said, we have your diagnosis. This is a condition called endometriosis. Cells that line the uterus have escaped. They apparently are going up through the fallopian tubes, and they can implant on your intestinal tract. They can implant on the ovaries. They can strangle the fallopian tubes. And they swell up and they cause pain, but they also cause infertility. And as time went on, she was not getting better. Painkillers, hormonal treatments were not helping her. So her doctor said, well, the definitive treatment is a hysterectomy. She said, well, my husband and I are kind of newlyweds, and we haven't had an opportunity to start our family yet. But she wasn't getting any better. And she reflected on it, and the doctor said, look, this is not really such a tough decision. This disease has made you infertile anyway, in all likelihood. So if you go ahead and have the procedure, you're going to feel a whole lot better. So she said, all right, fine. And she scheduled the hysterectomy. They couldn't do it for another 6 weeks. And in the intervening time, a friend of hers said, let's look at your diet. Let's go just sit down with a nutritionist. And they did. And the nutritionist told her about the same diet changes that I had suggested to Catherine. So no animal products at all. She was adopting a completely vegan diet, keeping the oils low, really basic, simple, healthy foods. And she noticed she started feeling better. And the pain started to change a little bit. She was losing weight. But 6 weeks arrived, and she dutifully reported to the operating room. And she was put under general anesthesia. Her surgeon opened her up. About an hour later, she woke up. She's in the recovery room. And the doctor shook her shoulder and said, "Catherine, I didn't do the hysterectomy. Your endometriosis is effectively gone. You had some scarring where it used to be, and you had some adhesions that were left behind, and I had to fix those, but that's it. You don't have endometriosis anymore." And her mother was there with her, and her mother said, "She went vegan." The doctor said, "Stop it. No. Listen, foods do not cause endometriosis, and there's no way that any fluky fat diet is going to have anything to do with curing this. This has got to just be a miracle." So I think that's written in her medical chart, that she had a miracle. Anyway, so she still has her uterus. She lost a lot of weight. She has 3 kids now. She joined us as one of our Food for Life instructors. This is, I was just talking about Salad Master and our partnership. And so she now teaches other women how to cook and how to prepare foods, and how they can kind of take back their own health into their own hands. And she has a center in Dallas, Texas. Anyway, so the point is, yeah, she had endometriosis, but she got rid of it. All she did was get back into balance. And in all of these conditions, I don't mean to say that there's not a role for medical care. There is. Food isn't everything, and sometimes you can follow a perfect diet and things are still going to happen to you. You don't want to cancel your doctor's appointment. Medical care is essential and very important. But the most important thing is the body's healing ability. You don't want to discount that. Okay, so cheese. Catherine loved cheese. Does cheese have hormones? Well, milk comes from a cow, and cows make estrogens. And every glass of milk that you ever had came from the following procedure. An underpaid farmhand takes a glove and he puts it all the way up to his shoulder, and then he inserts his hand into the cow's rectum up to his elbow, and through the rectal wall he can feel the uterus and he holds it steady. Then he takes his right hand and takes what looks like a knitting needle, he jams it through the cervix and inserts semen he took from a bull. And that cow is now impregnated, whether she wants to be or not. She's not going to object because she's chained by the neck. And of course, her offspring she's not going to raise them because that would defeat the purpose of the dairy. The male calves are killed, the females are put in an isolation hutch, and they will be impregnated when they're old enough. So cows are, I know this sounds creepy, but it's a useful mental image to retain for when you think about where milk comes from. Cows are kept pregnant annually. Their gestation is 9 months out of 12, which means that if you had a bowl of ice cream or a slice of cheese, odds are it came from a pregnant cow. So if cows make estrogen, pregnant cows make a lot more. And so it gets into their plasma, and from there it goes into their milk. And you think, how much can it be? Well, your average American consumes 35 pounds of cheese every year, plus ice cream, plus milk, plus butter, plus the dairy products that are baked into cookies and pies and things. And it's a substantial amount. And it's more than enough to affect your hormones. There's no such thing as hormone-free milk. The FDA often gets applications from dairies that say, we want to mention that our milk is hormone-free because we don't inject bovine growth hormone. We don't do that. But the FDA always replies, the cow herself is making hormones. There's no such thing as hormone-free milk. If your 6-year-old son is drinking milk, he's drinking estrogen. Okay, so cheese. Catherine loved cheese. Does cheese have hormones? Well, milk comes from a cow. And cows make estrogens. And every glass of milk that you ever had came from the following procedure. An underpaid farmhand takes a glove and he puts it all the way up to his shoulder, and then he inserts his hand into the cow's rectum up to his elbow, and through the rectal wall he can feel the uterus and he holds it steady. Then he takes his right hand and takes what looks like a knitting needle, he jams it through the cervix and inserts semen he took from a bull, and that cow is now impregnated. Whether she wants to be or not. She's not going to object because she's chained by the neck. And of course, her offspring she's not going to raise them because that would defeat the purpose of the dairy. The male calves are killed, the females are put in an isolation hutch, and they will be impregnated when they're old enough. So cows are, I know this sounds creepy, but it's a useful mental image to retain for when you think about where milk comes from. Cows are kept pregnant annually. Their gestation is 9 months out of 12, which means that if you had a bowl of ice cream or a slice of cheese, odds are it came from a pregnant cow. So if cows make estrogen, pregnant cows make a lot more. And so it gets into their plasma, and from there it goes into their milk. And you think, how much can it be? Well, your average American consumes 35 pounds of cheese every year, plus ice cream, plus milk, plus butter, plus the dairy products that are baked into cookies and pies and things. And it's a substantial amount. And it's more than enough to affect your hormones. There's no such thing as hormone-free milk. The FDA often gets applications from dairies that say, we want to mention that our milk is hormone-free because we don't inject bovine growth hormone. We don't do that. But the FDA always replies, the cow herself is making hormones. There's no such thing as hormone-free milk. If your 6-year-old son is drinking milk, he's drinking estrogens. Okay, so could this affect a man's health? Researchers in Rochester, New York went into a fertility clinic, and some of the men consumed relatively little cheese and others consumed a lot, and sperm counts were lower for the men who consumed more cheese. We also look at something called sperm morphology and motility, meaning the shape of it, and can they swim straight. And these tend to be impaired by cheese consumption. What we think is happening is that it relates to the estrogens that the guy has been consuming. Okay, so by the way, guys, don't go to sleep. Hank goes to the doctor's office and he says, Doc, I'm having trouble with my nature. And the doctor says, I'm sorry? And Hank says, Doc, I can't raise the flag. Okay, men have all these great euphemisms. So the doctor says, okay, well, I can write out a Viagra prescription for you, and the guy says, thanks, doc, it's all I need. Takes the prescription, runs out the door. The doctor says, stop, wait, and he follows him before he goes down the elevator. He says, we're not finished yet. Please, come back, sit down. Hank sits down. The doctor looks him in the eye and gives him the following speech. Viagra might help you tonight, but the reason that you have erectile dysfunction is because you have narrowed arteries. It's not performance anxiety. What you've got is atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is narrowing of the arteries, and it comes from a high cholesterol, high fat diet that causes little things called atherosclerotic plaques to form here and there in the arteries. And because the arteries to a man's private parts are naturally narrower than the arteries elsewhere in the body, that's one of the first places where you see the result. And the male sexual anatomy is sort of a hydraulic system. It needs a good blood supply in order to do its thing. Are you with me? It was obviously devised on a Monday. Things are going wrong with it all the time. So anyway, if you don't get good blood flow, it just doesn't work. And so what the doctor explains to Hank is the reason you have erectile dysfunction is you've got impaired blood supply, meaning you have atherosclerosis down there, which means that you have atherosclerosis in your heart and in the arteries to your brain, the carotid arteries. In all likelihood, you have atherosclerosis throughout your body, meaning you are at much higher than average risk for a heart attack or stroke within the next 4 or 5 years. So, take your Viagra if you want to, but it will not treat atherosclerosis. What I want you to do is make an appointment with a dietitian before you leave today, and let's get your diet back in order, because there's only one diet that has been shown to be part of a lifestyle change to reverse that, and that's getting the cholesterol and the animal products out of your diet, and now you've got a shot at opening up those arteries again. All cardiologists know that erectile dysfunction is the canary in the coal mine. Okay, note to self. We don't really respect our liver enough. It really cares for us. It's working on our behalf all the time. It filters things out of your blood that don't belong there, such as excess estrogens. So the liver will remove estrogens out of the blood, and can you see that? It sends it through that little green thing, that's the bile duct. So the estrogens go down the bile duct, they end up in the intestinal tract, and then it goes around through the intestine and it goes down the toilet. You're literally flushing away the estrogens that your liver pulled out. So that's handy, that keeps you from having too much. Except that this only works if you have fiber. Don't go to sleep. Fiber is a boring word, but it's important stuff. Fiber is plant roughage. It's in beans, it's in vegetables, it's in fruits, and as the fiber goes through your intestinal tract, it escorts the estrogens with it. But let's say I had chicken breast for lunch. Fiber? No fiber. It's not from a plant, so it doesn't have any fiber at all. And if I have yogurt or a cheese sandwich or something like that, you're not getting fiber. And so the estrogens are still filtered out, but they end up being reabsorbed back into your bloodstream. And this process called enterohepatic circulation means you're recycling hormones over and over and over again, and your estrogen levels are higher than they should be, and the way to interrupt that is with fiber. You bring in the vegetables and fruits, and you throw out the animal products, and suddenly your body says, okay, now I can get back into the balance that I'm supposed to have had, but never have had up until now. Okay, I want to see if you're paying attention. Spam. Fiber? No fiber. No fiber? Okay, here's our trash can. There we go. Bye. Okay. Let's see. KFC. Fiber or no fiber? No? There is a little bit if you eat the box. Okay, so that can go. Now there are some things that used to have fiber in them. Corn chips and things, when it was actually corn, there was a little fiber there, but it's amazing how factories can remove it also. Some of these things, they gotta go too. Dairy products affecting fertility. As you know, fertility declines as women year by year in a woman's life. If she's 22 or 23, she might say, well, this might be my time of maximal fertility, but I'm just starting my career. So I want to put off raising a family for a little while. Let me work and do some other things. And then when she's 35, her mother calls her up and says, honey, your clock is ticking. It's not going to be so easy for you to get pregnant now, and when you're over 40, it's going to be even more difficult, and that's all true. Right? Familiar? Okay, so Daniel Kramer at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston started looking at the drop in fertility in many different countries. The drop in fertility from women, say, in their late 20s to their late 30s. And in Thailand has not a lot of dairy in its diet. That's just not its thing traditionally. And the drop in fertility during that window is about 25%. In Brazil, a little more cheese, a little more dairy, the drop in fertility is about 50%. In the United States, the drop is about 80%. And if you put in all the countries that we have data for, it's not a perfect pattern, but you get the idea that it looks like the more dairy women consume, the more rapidly they extinguish their ability to have a child. What Dr. Kramer suggested, and there's substantial evidence for it, is that the problem is that the lactose sugar, which is the most prevalent nutrient in milk, there's more lactose than there is protein or calcium or even fat, it breaks apart in your body to release galactose and glucose. And galactose can be toxic to the ovary. At least that's what we believe is happening. And in nature, this wouldn't matter at all, because how long does the calf breastfeed? Maybe 6 months. How long does a human baby breastfeed? A year, 18 months, maybe 24 months at the outset. You know, you're not exposed to this for a very long period of time. But if culturally we consume milk year after year after year, I'm 20, I'm 30, I'm 40, I'm still drinking my milk because the government tells me so, you're exposed to something that nature never would have exposed you to otherwise. And that's this lactose sugar. So Kramer suggested that it's probably the galactose. But other researchers have looked at other signs of ovarian toxicity, particularly ovarian cancer. This is a Swedish study. And they found that the more dairy women consume, the more likely they are to develop ovarian cancer. So stay tuned. I think we need a lot more research on this. But for now, many people, I don't know if you saw this just about 3 days ago, an article came out in the New England Journal of Medicine, written by Walter Willett from Harvard and David Ludwig from Harvard, really rethinking this government recommendation that everybody needs to drink milk from a cow. Okay, stay tuned. Let me talk a little bit about something that really can kill you, and that's breast cancer. Estrogens, those little pink dots, those are estrogens. And that's a breast cell, and the estrogens can sneak right through the membrane into the cytoplasm, and from there they can go right through the nuclear membrane, and they can attach to your DNA. And as estrogens, I'm talking about your own estrogens, as they attach to the DNA, they can damage it and cause that damaged cell to turn into a cancer cell that can spread. What, am I saying that your own hormones can cause cancer? Yeah, that is what I'm saying. Hormones can kill you. If you don't have enough insulin, it can kill you. If you have too much insulin, you can die very rapidly. Thyroid hormone, if you don't have any, you're in trouble. If you have way too much, it can be fatal. Estrogen in high amounts is linked to breast cancer. Here's the compilation of 9 different studies looking at estrogen levels in women. And as you can see, the higher up you go in the amount of estrogen, the higher the risk of developing breast cancer. So anything that adds to that adds to risk. So if I had cancer already, could diet matter? Could it make a difference? Well, there's a study called the WINS study, Women's Intervention Nutrition Study. They brought in women, more than 2,000. They all had had cancer in the past. They were all treated. They all had one thing on their mind, which is, I hope my cancer does not come back. And what they asked them to do was to reduce the fat content of their diet. Reduce meat, reduce dairy, reduce oils in general. It wasn't quite vegetarian, but it was going very much in that direction, more vegetables, more fruits. And what they found is that the recurrence rate was cut by about 24%. And it implied whether they had estrogen receptor negative or positive tumors. The point being, the diet really did boost survival. And you could go further. You can really increase the vegetables and fruits and beans, and you can check out the animal products completely if you want to. So this is a study of cancer survivors, people already diagnosed with cancer. And now they looked at dairy and said, does dairy help you survive or not? What they found was very troubling. Those women consuming the most high-fat dairy, that's whole milk, butter, cheese, ice cream, they had a 49% higher risk of dying of their cancers compared to women who avoided these products. Let me be clear what I'm saying. These are women who had a cancer diagnosis in the past. They were successfully treated, and whether they lived or died depend to a great degree on whether dairy was a part of their diet. It wasn't the only thing, but their risk of dying was 49% higher if they're in the high dairy group. Okay. What about soy products? Do you hear people talk about soy? What do you hear? Oh, then it's risky. What does it do? Oh, it's got estrogens in it? Phytoestrogens, plant estrogen. And what does that do if a man eats it? Oh, it'll make him effeminate. It'll give him man boobs? You know, you could look all over the internet and you will see these, all kinds of things like that, is particularly in men's health and that kind of stuff. Oh, don't have the tofu, it'll make you effeminate. Or for women, it could cause breast cancer, or if she had cancer already, it could increase her likelihood of dying. Okay. Here's what they're thinking about. Soy products do have isoflavones, and genistein is the most common one, and it does look like estrogens. And in fact, in test tube studies, the isoflavones in soy do actually attach to the estrogen receptor. And so that worried people. That's kind of how all this started. And so maybe this could cause a man to become effeminate or cause breast cancer. But we have had lots of time to study all of this. And soy clearly is not the cause of breast enhancement in men. And if you want to prove this to yourself, go to the beach in August. And a guy who's a little heavyset is stripping off his shirt. And go right up to him and ask him, how much tofu did you eat this past week? Edamame? Miso soup? Tempeh? No, he's going to say, what are you talking about? I don't know what is that stuff. Well, what do you eat? Well, I eat burgers, I eat chicken wings, just normal stuff, I eat pizza. What has happened to him is as he has gained weight, he's got more body fat. That's a fat cell. And a fat cell is not just a bag of calories. A fat cell is a living, breathing, metabolizing factory. And what it does is it takes testosterone and converts it to estradiol. Your male hormones convert to female hormones in your body fat. So as he gains weight, he gains estrogen that goes to his breast area and causes breast, and this is not just fat, he's actually developing breast tissue, okay? So soy gets a not guilty verdict there. Now with regard to breast cancer, we have had more than enough time to study this, and women who consume the most soy have the least breast cancer. I'm talking about women who consume soy milk and tofu have about 29% less breast cancer than women who avoid these things. And also for women who consume soy after cancer diagnosis, those who consume the most soy have the least likelihood of dying of their disease. So the well-meaning but ill-informed oncologist who says, now that you've been treated for your breast cancer, I don't want you to have any soy because it's got phytoestrogens in it, you have just condemned that woman to about a 30% increased risk of mortality. Now, soy is optional. You don't have to have it. It's handy. You know, if it replaces a burger, it's way better than what it replaced. You can replace bacon with it. You can make soy yogurt and soy cheese. And one day they'll make snow tires probably out of soy. But you don't have to have it. It's totally optional, but it does not cause cancer. It doesn't make men effeminate. It doesn't do any of that bad stuff. And it reduces cancer risk quite substantially. Okay, let me shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about the thyroid. Nobody knows where their thyroid is, but it's at the base of your neck. It's shaped like a butterfly, and it makes energy for you. That's its whole job. And if you are hypothyroid, that means you're low in thyroid. But the gland is not making enough thyroid hormone. You can feel crummy. You're kind of running on empty. You're weak. You're sensitive to cold. You feel constipated. You'll often gain a little bit of weight. Your mood may go down, and your skin and hair will change. Now you can have the opposite. You can be hyperthyroid, and it's just the opposite. You're revved up. You're likely to lose weight. You're likely to lose weight, although once in a while people gain a little bit. Your pulse will be higher. You're going to feel more revved up and just feel crummy. So what's this all about? Well, it's really pretty simple. The first thing is thyroid hormone has to have iodine to be built. And in 1924, the Morton Salt Company released this product, these little salt things with iodized salt. And that pretty much made sure that every American had iodine every day. About a third of a teaspoon provides all the iodine you need. However, being modern people, we always find ways to make ourselves sick. So people started using sea salt and kosher salt and Himalayan salt, which is not iodized. And then we start gaining weight and whatever, wondering what's the issue. You do need iodine. There is a source, dairy disinfectants. Cows are not so hygienic. So before you put the milking machine on, you have to kind of wipe away the things that have dribbled onto the udder. And so what farmers use is a iodine-containing disinfectant spray. And if you spray it, you don't wipe it off too well, then some of the feces mixed with disinfectant will actually get into the milk. And it's a significant iodine source. However, there's another source, and that's sea vegetables. And as a kid growing up in Fargo, North Dakota, I did not know what seaweed was in any culinary sense. But if you go to a sushi bar, that nori seaweed that goes around the sushi, that's an iodine source. So don't get the fish sushi, unless you're really well insured. But the cucumber roll or the asparagus roll or the sweet potato roll, that kind of stuff, you'll get the nori and no cholesterol. The wakame that's in the seaweed salad or in your miso soup, or the aramay, which is a very delicate sea vegetable that combines just great with cucumbers, a little salt, and a little seasoned vinegar, lightest salad you've ever had. So all of these give us what nature thought we were going to do, is get iodine from sea vegetables. So, see what you think. In the United States, the biggest reason for hypothyroidism is actually antibodies. Your body makes antibodies. Antibodies are torpedoes. Your white blood cells see that a virus has entered, and so they make antibodies to destroy them. They swim around in the blood, and they find viruses and they kill them. Or a bacteria has invaded, or there's a cancer cell. Antibodies can recognize these things and destroy them. And for some reason, when people have what's called Hashimoto's thyroiditis, they're low in thyroid, the problem is that their body's making antibodies attacking themselves. And the opposite can occur. So instead of shutting down the thyroid, it can rev it up. Antibodies can attack the regulatory machinery so that you can't stop making thyroid hormone and you end up hyperthyroid. So most cases of hyper or hypothyroidism are related to antibody action. So, well, autoimmune diseases, we learned a long time ago, are often affected to either a small degree or a large degree by diet. We learned this with rheumatoid arthritis. We learned it with asthma. It started really with just case studies. The guy with asthma stopped consuming dairy, the asthma went away. By the way, if anybody here has a kid with asthma, or if you have it yourself, run, do not walk to a completely dairy-free vegan diet and just see how things go, okay? Just don't cancel your doctor's appointment, but do this. And in many cases, you will see that they get just dramatically better or no longer have asthma. Rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's disease. The research is still a little fluky, and I think we need a lot more really good studies on these. But many people have made these kinds of diet changes, and they do better. And hypo and hyperthyroidism are autoimmune conditions in most cases, okay? So could foods really affect the thyroid? The Adventist Health Study, too, they looked at who had the most and who had the least hypothyroidism. And it may not surprise you that people who had followed vegan diets had the least hypothyroidism. And the group worst off was people who were ovo-lacto vegetarians. Meaning they're not eating meat and they're making up for it with dairy products, cheese, and so forth. And with regard to hyperthyroidism, the omnivores did the worst. And again, the vegans do the best. So I think we need more research, but it does look like avoiding the animal products minimizes the risk. Okay, this is Mike. Mike's a neurosurgeon, lives in North Carolina, and he was hypothyroid. He was 45 years old, and the test we do is called TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. Its job is to push the thyroid to get into gear. And if your TSH level is rising, that's a sign that your thyroid is really sluggish. Somehow the TSH is pushing and pushing, your TSH is going up. So after about 5 years, Mike's own physician said, let's face it, you're hypothyroid, why don't you start replacing it? But he didn't do that. He changed his diet, went on a totally plant-based diet, and what happened was his TSH level came down to normal. He wasn't really overweight, but he lost 7 or 8 pounds that he realized he didn't need, and his energy got dramatically better. And so we see many, many, many cases just like this. But other researchers have looked at other signs of ovarian toxicity, particularly ovarian cancer. This is a Swedish study, and they found that the more dairy women consume, the more likely they are to develop ovarian cancer. So stay tuned. I think we need a lot more research on this. But for now, many people, I don't know if you saw this just about 3 days ago, an article came out in the New England Journal of Medicine, written by Walter Willett from Harvard and David Ludwig from Harvard, really rethinking this government recommendation that everybody needs to drink milk from a cow. Okay, stay tuned. Let me talk a little bit about something that really can kill you, and that's breast cancer. Estrogens, those little pink dots, those are estrogens. And that's a breast cell, and the estrogens can sneak right through the membrane into the cytoplasm, and from there they can go right through the nuclear membrane, and they can attach to your DNA. And as estrogens, I'm talking about your own estrogens, as they attach to the DNA, they can damage it and cause that damaged cell to turn into a cancer cell that can spread. What, am I saying that your own hormones can cause cancer? Yeah, that is what I'm saying. Hormones can kill you. If you don't have enough insulin, it can kill you. If you have too much insulin, you can die very rapidly. Thyroid hormone, if you don't have any, you're in trouble. If you have way too much, it can be fatal. Estrogen in high amounts is linked to breast cancer. Here's the compilation of 9 different studies looking at estrogen levels in women. And as you can see, the higher up you go in the amount of estrogen, the higher the risk of developing breast cancer. So anything that adds to that adds to risk. So if I had cancer already, could diet matter? Could it make a difference? Well, there's a study called the WINS study, Women's Intervention Nutrition Study. They brought in women, more than 2,000. They all had had cancer in the past. They were all treated. They all had one thing on their mind, which is, I hope my cancer does not come back. And what they asked them to do was to reduce the fat content of their diet. Reduce meat, reduce dairy, reduce oils in general. It wasn't quite vegetarian, but it was going very much in that direction, more vegetables, more fruits. And what they found is that the recurrence rate was cut by about 24%. And it implied whether they had estrogen receptor negative or positive tumors. The point being, the diet really did boost survival. And you could go further. You can really increase the vegetables and fruits and beans, and you can check out the animal products completely if you want to. So this is a study in cancer survivors, people already diagnosed with cancer. And now they looked at dairy and said, does dairy help you survive or not? What they found was very troubling. Those women consuming the most high-fat dairy, that's whole milk, butter, cheese, ice cream, they had a 49% higher risk of dying of their cancers compared to women who avoided these products. Let me be clear what I'm saying. These are women who had a cancer diagnosis in the past. They were successfully treated, and whether they lived or died depend to a great degree on whether dairy was a part of their diet. It wasn't the only thing, but their risk of dying was 49% higher if they're in the high dairy group. Okay. What about soy products? Do you hear people talk about soy? What do you hear? Oh, that's risky. What does it do? Oh, it's got estrogens in it? Phytoestrogens, plant estrogen. And what does that do if a man eats it? Oh, it'll make him effeminate. It'll give him man boobs? You know, you could look all over the internet and you will see these, all kinds of things like that, it's particularly in men's health and that kind of stuff. Oh, don't have the tofu, it'll make you effeminate. Or for women, it could cause breast cancer, or if she had cancer already, it could increase her likelihood of dying. Okay. Here's what they're thinking about. Soy products do have isoflavones, and genistein is the most common one, and it does look like estrogens. And in fact, in test tube studies, the isoflavones in soy do actually attach to the estrogen receptor. And so that worried people. That's kind of how all this started. And so maybe this could cause a man to become effeminate or cause breast enhancement. But we have had lots of time to study all of this. And soy clearly is not the cause of breast enhancement in men. And if you want to prove this to yourself, go to the beach in August. And a guy who's a little heavyset is stripping off his shirt. And go right up to him and ask him, how much tofu did you eat this past week? Edamame? Miso soup? Tempeh? No, he's going to say, what are you talking about? I don't know what is that stuff. Well, what do you eat? Well, I eat burgers, I eat chicken wings, just normal stuff, I eat pizza. What has happened to him is as he has gained weight, he's got more body fat. That's a fat cell. And a fat cell is not just a bag of calories. A fat cell is a living, breathing, metabolizing factory. And what it does is it takes testosterone and converts it to estradiol. Your male hormones convert to female hormones in your body fat. So as he gains weight, he gains estrogen that goes to his breast area and causes breast. And this is not just fat. He's actually developing breast tissue. Okay? So soy gets a not guilty verdict there. Now, with regard to breast cancer, we have had more than enough time to study this, and women who consume the most soy have the least breast cancer. I'm talking about women who consume soy milk and tofu have about 29% less breast cancer than women who avoid these things. And also for women who consume soy after cancer diagnosis. Those who consume the most soy have the least likelihood of dying of their disease. So the well-meaning but ill-informed oncologist who says, now that you've been treated for your breast cancer, I don't want you to have any soy because it's got phytoestrogens in it, you have just condemned that woman to about a 30% increased risk of mortality. Now, soy is optional. You don't have to have it. It's handy. You know, if it replaces a burger, it's way better than what it replaced. You can replace bacon with it. You can make soy yogurt and soy cheese. And one day they make snow tires probably out of soy. But you don't have to have it. It's totally optional, but it does not cause cancer. It doesn't make men effeminate. It doesn't do any of that bad stuff. And it reduces cancer risk quite substantially. I want to talk about the thyroid. Nobody knows where their thyroid is, but it's at the base of your neck. It's shaped like a butterfly, and it makes energy for you. That's its whole job. And if you are hypothyroid, that means you're low in thyroid. But the gland is not making enough thyroid hormone. You can feel crummy. You're kind of running on empty. You're weak. You're sensitive to cold. You feel constipated. You'll often gain a little bit of weight. Your mood may go down, and your skin and hair will change. Now you can have the opposite. You can be hyperthyroid, and it's just the opposite. You're revved up. You're likely to lose weight. You're likely to lose weight, although once in a while people gain a little bit. Your pulse will be higher. You're going to feel more revved up and just feel crummy. So what's this all about? Well, it's really pretty simple. The first thing is thyroid hormone has to have iodine to be built. And in 1924, the Morton Salt Company released this product, these little salt things with iodized salt, and that pretty much made sure that every American had iodine every day. About a third of a teaspoon provides all the iodine you need. However, being modern people, we always find ways to make ourselves sick. So people started using sea salt and kosher salt and Himalayan salt, which is not iodized. And then we start gaining weight and whatever, wondering what's the issue. You do need iodine. There is a source, dairy disinfectants. Cows are not so hygienic. So before you put the milking machine on, you have to kind of wipe away the things that have dribbled onto the udder. And so what farmers use is a iodine-containing disinfectant spray. And if you spray it, you don't wipe it off too well, then some of the feces mixed with disinfectant will actually get into the milk. And it's a significant iodine source. However, there's another source, and that's sea vegetables. And as a kid growing up in Fargo, North Dakota, I did not know what seaweed was in any culinary sense. But if you go to a sushi bar, that nori seaweed that goes around the sushi, that's an iodine source. Now don't get the fish sushi, unless you're really well insured. But the cucumber roll or the asparagus roll, or the sweet potato roll, that kind of stuff, you'll get the nori and no cholesterol. The wakame that's in the seaweed salad or in your miso soup, or the aramay, which is a very delicate sea vegetable that combines just great with cucumbers, a little salt, and a little seasoned vinegar, lightest salad you've ever had. So all of these give us what nature thought we were going to do, is get iodine from sea vegetables. So, see what you think. In the United States, the biggest reason for hypothyroidism is actually antibodies. Your body makes antibodies. Antibodies are torpedoes. Your white blood cells see that a virus has entered, and so they make antibodies to destroy them. They swim around in the blood, and they find viruses and they kill them. Or a bacteria has invaded, or there's a cancer cell. Antibodies can recognize these things and destroy them. And for some reason, when people have what's called Hashimoto's thyroiditis, they're low in thyroid, the problem is that their body's making antibodies attacking themselves. And the opposite can occur. So instead of shutting down the thyroid, it can rev it up. Antibodies can attack the regulatory machinery so that you can't stop making thyroid hormone and you end up hyperthyroid. So most cases of hyper or hypothyroidism are related to antibody action. So, well, autoimmune diseases, we learned a long time ago, are often affected to either a small degree or a large degree by diet. We learned this with rheumatoid arthritis. We learned it with asthma. It's starting really with just case studies. The guy with asthma stopped consuming dairy and the asthma went away. By the way, if anybody here has a kid with asthma, or if you have it yourself, run, do not walk to a completely dairy-free vegan diet and just see how things go, okay? Just don't cancel your doctor's appointment, but do this. And in many cases, you will see that they get just dramatically better or no longer have asthma. Okay? Rheumatoid arthritis, Sjogren's disease. The research is still a little fluky, and I think we need a lot more really good studies on these. But many people have made these kinds of diet changes, and they do better. And hypo and hyperthyroidism are autoimmune conditions in most cases. Okay. So, could foods really affect the thyroid? The Adventist Health Study, too. They looked at who had the most and who had the least hypothyroidism. And it may not surprise you that people who had followed vegan diets had the least hypothyroidism. And the group worst off was people who were ovo-lacto-vegetarians. Meaning they're not eating meat and they're making up for it with dairy products, cheese, and so forth. And with regard to hyperthyroidism, the omnivores do the worst, and again, the vegans do the best. So I think we need more research, but it does look like avoiding the animal products minimizes the risk. Okay, this is Mike. Mike's a neurosurgeon, lives in North Carolina, and he was hypothyroid. He was 45 years old, and the test we do is called TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. Its job is to push the thyroid to get into gear. And if your TSH level is rising, that's a sign that your thyroid is really sluggish. Somehow the TSH is pushing and pushing, your TSH is going up. So after about 5 years, Mike's own physician said, let's face it, you're hypothyroid, why don't you start replacing it? But he didn't do that, he changed his diet, went on a totally plant-based diet, and what happened was his TSH level came down to normal. He wasn't really overweight, but he lost 7 or 8 pounds that he realized he didn't need, and his energy got dramatically better. And so we see many, many, many cases just like this. So, one more hormone I want to talk about. We've talked about estrogen, we've talked about a little bit about testosterone, and thyroid hormone, and insulin. It's kind of the granddaddy troublesome hormone of all. Because when insulin is not working, you have diabetes, exactly. In 2003, the US government, the NIH, funded our research team to try to find a better diabetes diet. And we used a conventional diet, which was limiting calories and limiting carbohydrates, or an experimental diet, which was completely plant-based, vegan, low in oil. And to cut to the chase, the blood test that we use is called hemoglobin A1C, and it's a measure of your blood sugar control. And if a person has diabetes, it ought to be below 7. Our participants started out at around 8, which is not good control. The red line shows the conventional diet, and as you can see, they did well. They dropped by about 0.4 absolute percentage points, which is good, which is quite good. But the plant-based group, the vegan group, dropped by 1.2 absolute percentage points just on average, which is huge. If you have a medication that does that, that is a fabulous medication. And it was beans, asparagus, cheap foods. This is Vance. Vance was a policeman in Washington, D.C. And then he worked in a bank, and he had diabetes. And he came in and he said, diabetes to me, it's all up down my family tree. I know exactly what it means. It means you're going to probably go blind, lose a leg. This is not a good thing. So he wanted to join our research study. And he started the vegan diet, and after about 2 weeks on the diet, he said, you know, this is something. This is the easiest diet I ever did. I said, really? Most people would think a vegan diet means you gotta have a taste for folk music, tie-dye clothes, tell people you're like a philosopher, stuff like work in a library. And it's like, no. He says, look, vegan diet. You don't know. Diets that I have done in the past, they make me count my carb grams. So I gotta keep lists of my carb grams. And then they make me cut calories, and that's the worst. So I'm a big guy. I would normally eat, 2,000 calories a day according to my dietitian, and my menu adds up to 1,500. That means every day you go to bed hungry. How are you supposed, by Wednesday you want to eat the sofa. With us, we just said, don't eat meat chili, eat bean chili. Instead of Alfredo sauce on your pasta, put tomato sauce on your, real simple. So that's what he did. And over about a year, he lost 60 pounds. His doctor stopped his medication, his private doctor stopped his medications because his blood sugars were in good range. And his A1C fell from 9.5, which is bad, poor control, to 5.3. And for any physicians in the house, 5.3 as an A1C is, that's normal. And I want to tell you something. I had his lab slip in my hand for about 15 minutes pacing around in my office. I was trying to, this is bad, I know it sounds stupid. This was 16, 17 years ago. I was pacing around because I wanted to know, could I tell him he doesn't have diabetes? At that time, people said, once you have diabetes, you will always have diabetes. And it had almost this punitive air, but it was said for good reason. The idea was, take it seriously. You will never be free of this disease. You must do your finger sticks. You must take your medications. You must go to the clinic. Here was a guy who didn't have diabetes, according to his blood tests. Do I tell him? And now we can laugh about it because, frankly, we see it all the time. We have many, many people who come to us where their A1Cs get in the normal range and they get off their medication. Now, not everybody. If you've had diabetes for 30 years and you change your diet, it's very unlikely to completely go away, although it will get better in most cases. And in some cases, like some of us were talking about earlier, some cases it does just go away. But it's a two-way street. Velveeta is waiting around the corner for you. Okay, be careful. All right. So let me show you the cause of type 2 diabetes. And if you have an endocrinologist, you can charge your endocrinologist for listening to your lecture about this. I want you to share this. People, they seem to think you got diabetes from eating bread. That's not the cause. This is a cell, one of the cells of your body, okay? And insulin is made in your pancreas. It goes in the blood and it arrives at the cell, and insulin acts like a key to let glucose in the cell. With me so far? Okay, the insulin's made in your pancreas, goes to the surface of the cell, just like a key. It opens up the cells to allow sugar to go into those funny little channels. And it goes. A person who has type 2 diabetes has all that machinery. And they have insulin. But they have something else. They have those yellow blobs. That's fat. Beef fat. Chicken fat. Fish oil. Olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil. Extra virgin olive oil. There might be a little 1040 motor oil in there, I'm not sure. But there's the fat is building up in their cells. And it stops insulin from working. Let me be clear. Fat buildup inside muscle and liver cells causes insulin resistance so that your own insulin can no longer open that cell. And so now you can eat bread, you can eat an apple, you can eat anything, and the sugar stays in the blood. It can't get into the cell normally. And we blame the bread or the apple. That's not the cause. The cause was the bologna sandwich that you were eating. The fat builds up in the cells. Are you with me? Okay, so why did Vance cure himself of diabetes? Because how much animal fat is there in the vegan diet? There isn't any. And if you keep oils really low, that fat drains out. Now, back years ago, we didn't know this, but we know this now. I can take a patient like Vance, I can change his diet, and I send him to our partners, Jerry Schulman and Kit Peterson at Yale University, where they lie down on the table. We do what is called magnetic resonance spectroscopy. It's an expensive test where I'm now looking not at a twisted ankle or a brain tumor. I'm looking into your body, where I'm looking at the fat inside your muscles and the fat inside your livers. And if you change your diet enough, it goes away quickly. And your blood sugar starts dropping. And your doctor says, we've got to cut you back on your insulin. I don't know why, but this is what is changing. And this is why people get better. And so that shows us the kind of diet changes we need to make. Yes, throw out the sodas. Yes, be careful about sugar. But if that is all you do, you will have diabetes forever. But if we change this, you've got a shot at not only reducing your medication doses, but maybe getting rid of it and preventing the complications of diabetes. My father was in the cattle business as a young man. He didn't like it, he left. He went to medical school, he became a diabetes expert for Fargo, North Dakota. Every night, 6 o'clock, he would arrive home, sit on his medical bag, and slump into a chair. I never once heard my father say that a diabetes patient ever got better. It was all blood tests, urine tests, sharp needles, trying to forestall the damage, trying to save vision and prevent people from needing dialysis. And I've often wished that I could go back in time and say, hey Dad, we've learned a few things about how this is, and frankly the answer is really simple. It's don't eat like you're in North Dakota. You know, I want to say, the body has a capacity to heal. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. If you cut your skin, the Band-Aid doesn't heal you. The Band-Aid protects you. Inside the DNA of every cell in your body is the ability for skin cells to rejoin. And cut blood vessels will find each other again. There'll be a scar, but it heals. And a cast doesn't heal a broken leg. Cast just holds the bones together so they can heal. It's in their DNA, the capacity to heal is there. Your coronary arteries can heal. They can open up again. Diseases can heal. It's not perfect, but it's good. But if I take that bandage off and I pick at my cut all the time, will it ever heal? If the bone is not stabilized and keeps wiggling, will it ever heal? If my diet is filled with animal fat and cholesterol, will my arteries ever heal? If I don't put the fiber in that my body needs to get rid of excess estrogens, will I just be listed as an infertile person or a person with pain or whatever? We don't use the body's capacity to heal, and that was for a good reason. It's because we didn't know how the system worked. We're at the wheel of a car with a blindfold on. But now we know more. We're peeking under that blindfold, and we've got to use it and use the body's capacity to heal. So this is a healthy diet. It's vegetables and fruits and whole grains and legumes. What are legumes? Legumes are beans, peas, lentils, foods that grow in a pod. So to start a healthy diet, if you were dragged here by a friend who said, I promise this is not a cult, but now you're not so sure, you might be thinking, okay, I think there's maybe something to this. I'm not sure, but there might be something to this. If you'd like to try a healthy diet, we have a way of introducing it. And don't take this on faith. You don't have to believe it. You just have to try it out for yourself. And we've had thousands of people in our randomized clinical trials, and this is the step. These are the steps we use. Step one is check out the possibilities. If I were actually going to do a healthy plant-based diet, what would I eat? Take a week and sort that out. Take a piece of paper and just write down on it foods that you could eat for breakfast or lunch or dinner or snacks that would be free of animal products. You got 7 days, make up your list. So you think, okay, for breakfast I could have maybe vegan pancakes or scrambled tofu. Is that any good? Does that cause man boobs? You can test out these foods, try them out, see which ones you like. And then for lunch, just do the same thing. Just try different foods. Just think about foods that don't have animal products in them. Test them out. And now if you go to an Italian restaurant, what you discover is they've got angel hair pasta with arrabbiata sauce and marinara sauce and pasta e fagioli. They've got all kinds of things. Okay, great, that's cool. And then you go to Latin American restaurants and they've got even more. Beans and rice and veggie fajitas and bean burritos. And then you discover the Chinese, they got even more. They got 3 dozen things like rice and tofu and many different vegetable dishes. And if you look at Japanese cuisine, best of all, because it's also low in oil, the veggie sushi or miso soup or seaweed salads. And I have to say, Taco Bell is not the pinnacle of culinary art, but they will make the bean burrito if you hold the cheese. That's vegan too. Okay, fair enough. So a week has gone by. I got my list. These are foods that I could actually eat quite happily. So now, step 2 is take 3 weeks and do a test drive. Do it all vegan for just 3 weeks. And what you discover is at the end of that time, the foods were pretty good, and it was easy to do because it was only 3 weeks and you already pre-selected your food, so it's not hard. But you discover that you're physically changing, your blood sugar is coming down, your weight is coming down, your energy is better, and you're also looking at foods in a different way. Things you thought you could never live without, you kind of don't care about them anymore, and you're discovering new foods and new products at the store, and you're also discovering that it seems like everybody you know is doing the same thing. And you're reading about celebrities who are doing this, and you read about all the Academy Awards things have all gone vegan, and the world is just changing along with you, and it's a cool experience to really do it. This is my new book. called Your Body in Balance. And I want to tell you why I wrote this. I've written a number of books, and when I do them, it's always because I have things that I feel urgently people need to know. And in this case, it starts off with sex hormones and all the issues that sex hormones are related to, and just how you dial it back into where it ought to be. And then the second part is all about metabolism and also mood, and how different hormonal issues relate to that as well. And then the third part is starting it. So we talk about what a healthy diet is. We also talk about how to be free of environmental contaminants that can get into food, or maybe in your water. And then we have menus and recipes. And I want to brag about that for just a second. Lindsay Nixon is the recipe developer who did all of these. And you may know her as the Happy Herbivore online, but she made 65 wonderful recipes. And when she sent me the list, she sent me all the recipes. They're great. They're easy to make, few ingredients, tasty. But she sent me a note that said, Dr. Barnard, I hope you like the recipes. I really like them, but I need to tell you that the foods you recommend cured my menstrual cramps. So I thought, okay, that's an endorsement. So here's the idea. At the moment, people think, okay, I eat food, I gain weight, or I have a high cholesterol, or high blood pressure, something like that. What I'm hoping we can do is be a little more sophisticated. That certain foods will affect our hormones for ill or for good. And once we know what those are, we know how that system works, which is relatively easy to do, you gain control over a whole list of things that we had thought were just maybe our fate. They're not our fate. These are things that we can change. Let me mention some resources that you might want to take advantage of. This is the 21-Day Vegan Kickstart app. It's free. It's on your smartphone. It is in English and in Spanish. And if you're a caregiver, you can let your patients know that it has menus and recipes and videos in their respective languages. There's no commercial sponsorship. We're not selling anything. It's free and it's cool, and hundreds of thousands of people are using it. Secondly, for clinicians, we have something called the Nutrition Guide for Clinicians. It's about 90 chapters from Alzheimer's to varicose veins. And we do it for medical students, but frankly, doctors need this too. And we have a website called Nutrition CME. This is a partnership with George Washington University, where we have CME for doctors. It's totally free, it's AMA approved, and it's cool. It's all about nutrition. And if you would like to join us in Washington in August when we are at our most sweltering, we would like to have you at the Grand Hyatt right near the White House. We have a 3-day CME course with 1,000 or more doctors all learning about nutrition to make your heart sing, because the world really is changing enormously. The people who need this message the most aren't here. The people who need this message the most are 12 years old, or 14, or 16, and they go through the school lunch line and they get chicken nuggets and tater tots and a glass of milk, and then if they get symptoms, they don't associate it with what they eat. On the way home, they get string cheese at the 7-Eleven, and their parents put a pepperoni pizza in the oven for them. And if they gain weight, they're told, well, you're just not exercising enough. Or if they're infertile, that's God's will. Or if they have pain, menstrual pain, that's just what it's like to be a woman. They turn on the TV, and that kind of supports this, because half the commercials are for snack foods, and the other half of the commercials are for medications to undo the effects of the snack foods. And that's the world we've left to our kids. So, shall we change the world? What we've got to do is learn. We've got to learn how it works. We've got to connect with people at work. And then we've got to share it. And when I say share it, I mean make noise. If you're on social media, if you're on Twitter, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Instagram, you reach a lot of people. Each of them are forwarding your messages to other people. So my thought is we've got to get the word out. This is not rocket science. It's relatively simple once we put it to work. So, yeah, I know what you're thinking. There's a lot of people making a lot of money off bad food. We are never going to win. Foods are addicting anyway. I know what you mean. It is true that there are a lot of people making money off unhealthy foods. There are a lot more worried parents and worried school nurses and principals and doctors who say, I would really give anything if I could frankly be a little bit more unemployed. If we could conquer diabetes and conquer high blood pressure and conquer cholesterol problems, or just leave behind the residue of those conditions that really are genetic, or we're just kind of stuck. The the more that we can do to prevent these things, the better off we're all going to be. Is that a good idea? So I want to thank you for coming today.